Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Triangulation is brought to you by Cashfly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Triangulation, episode 181, recorded December 22nd, 2014. The best of 2014. This episode of Triangulation is brought to you by Personal Capital. With Personal Capital, you'll have many more happy holidays as you grow and protect your wealth with this award-winning financial app. Best of all, it's free. To sign up, go to personalcapital.com/triangulation. Hey everybody, Leo Laporte here, your elf on the shelf, for a very special holiday triangulation. You know, Triangulation is a show where we get the big thinkers, the interesting folks from all over the internet, and we can sit them down and we literally just, do you hear bells? And we literally just get them talking for an hour about their thing. It's so much fun. I love doing it. And this episode is going to be a best of from 2014, about 15 of the most interesting big thinkers we've had on Triangulation this year. In fact, let's kick things off with an old friend, a guy I really adore. He's been on Twit many, many times. And he wrote a book about the history of Twitter that just was mind-blowing. Nick Bilton of the New York Times is here talking about Hatching Twitter. Watch. Hatching Twitter is Nick's new book, a true story of money, power, friendship, and betrayal. This was quite the soap opera.
Oh, it's a total soap opera. I mean, you know, when I first set out to write the book, I knew there was some drama in the story of Twitter, but I had no idea it was going to be to the extent of the drama that I found in the reporting of this book.
Must have been fun for you as it unfolded. You're going, ooh, this is getting juicy. Oh, juicier. Oh, juicier.
There were parts that I when I was doing interviews that I literally, my mouth just dropped open and I was like, you can't even make this stuff up. And I mean, the best way that I've described it is it's Game of Thrones, but with nerds.
And who's Ned Stark?
Who is Ned? Well, Ned Stark is killed pretty early on, so I think probably Noah.
Noah Glass is Ned Stark. He's the guy who came up with the, we think, well, that's okay. That's question number one.
One night, Noah and Jack go out drinking and dancing and partying and drinking vodka Red Bulls. And Noah gives Jack a ride home, and it's about 2:30 in the morning. And Jack's living on 16th and Mission at the time. And they pull up onto the side of the street, and it's raining and it's cold and there's no one out, and it's very melancholic because Noah's going through a terrible divorce, and the company's failing, and Jack's upset because he wants to be a fashion designer. He doesn't want to work in programming, and he likes this girl Crystal in the office. He doesn't like him, and all these things. And they have this conversation about how it feels to feel alone, and what if there was a service that you could use that would connect you to your friends. And that was the very, very first conversation about what Twitter became.
So Jack and Noah, by the way, that's a nice little point. Jack wanted to be a fashion designer. He wanted to get out of the
jeans and skirts and things like that. He did not want to be a programmer in any way, shape, or form.
By the way, you've got to have optioned this by now.
Oh yeah, it's been optioned by Lionsgate. We already started working on the TV show.
Okay. So there used to be the story, and this is one of the interesting things I found out from the book. There's a lot of probably intentional myth-making going on about all of this.
Without a doubt.
And there was one story I remember in South Park. In South Park, there's a kids' playground of Jack Dorsey on the swings and the slide. Did that never happen?
So that happened, but it's not an important part of the story. It would be like saying, that it literally what happened was they had these hack days, and one of the hack days, Jack had talked about this idea of being able to update your status from anywhere, but no one really paid attention to it. It didn't really go anywhere, and it wasn't until the Noah came in with Jack. So Noah was very effervescent. He was, he was almost like a Kramer kind of character. And
he sounds like that in the book, totally.
He's like all over the place. He's super energetic. He's really, really sweet and kind, and he's literally just a ball of energy. He wouldn't sleep for days at a time because he had so much energy. And he came in with Jack to talk to Ev and Biz and explain this idea for the status updating thing. And the day after that, they had that conversation. So in the car, the swing set had taken place, but no one had, when it came up, no one had paid attention to it because it wasn't, Jack couldn't explain it. Like it wasn't, it wasn't completely formulated.
Right.
Jack, the idea of the status update, but it was Noah's idea of connecting with friends that made it what it ended up becoming. And then what happened was they took those two concepts and then they coupled it with Biz and Ev's concepts of blogging and creating a stream of characters and this and that and the other. And essentially that was what Twitter became.
Was it 140 characters from the very first?
What's that?
140 characters from the very first.
No, it was originally unlimited. It was essentially supposed to be used by text message, but there was no limit. You could send an endless stream of text messages, but they would come as a stream of text messages. Right. And so in October what happened was, before we jump to that, is they created a prototype. Ev funded it. They created this prototype, and immediately it just takes off. And they internally they just think this is like the greatest thing ever. And
by the way, that's a very important sign, because Odeo, nobody was even a podcaster. They never used their own tools. Here's a tool they created that everybody uses. Everybody's thrilled about. That's a good sign.
Yeah, and it's the first day that they actually use it. The first day they turn it on, you can just see the excitement. And there's in the book. There's this really beautiful scene where they all sign up that morning and they're tweeting back and forth at each other. And then they go home separately and they're all going to bed and they all say goodnight and go to bed and eat individually. And it's almost like a little kid's room where you have a sleepover party. And it's actually really beautiful. And it's essentially what Noah dreamed it would be. It was this way to connect with your friends when they weren't there.
Yeah.
And then what happened was Noah also came up with the name Twitter. He was the one that came up with that idea.
You tell the story of him going through the dictionary.
Yeah, he's flipping through the dictionary until he finds the word. But what happens is Noah starts becoming the guy who's known for Twitter. He's the one that's running it, essentially. And Jack Dorsey doesn't like that. And Evan and Noah are kind of fighting because they just have two different opinions of what this thing should be and what everything should be, essentially. And one afternoon, Jack goes into Ev's office and he says, I want to talk to you confidentially. And he says, I can't work with Noah anymore. If he stays, I'm quitting. And Ev has no choice but to fire him. And Noah gets pushed out of both of the companies that he helped start.
Noah doesn't have enough equity in the company to say no?
He's not a fighter. I tell stories in the book of instances before that where he was put in situations where his guardian tried to teach him how to pick a fight and stand up for himself, and he's just not wired that way. And so when it came to that, he didn't have the energy or the effort or even the know-how to stand up for himself in that regard. And one of the things that Noah said to me when I spoke to him for the book, he said, I wasn't looking for anything other than friends. And he said, the quote that he said that I thought was really beautiful was, more than fame and more than fortune, I just wanted friends.
And of course, that's the thing he lost.
And that's the thing he lost.
Because Jack immediately starts rewriting the history and taking Noah's name out.
Yeah, so Jack starts telling this story about the creation of Twitter, that Jack had come up with it years earlier on his own, and he literally from that day forth never mentions Noah's name in any kind of interview or anything. And Noah's just literally ejected from the company. He gets no equity in Twitter, and Jack ends up getting 20% of the company, which today has made him into a multi-billionaire.
I always wonder, we're in such an interesting time where people like you have a scope for expression that just wouldn't have been around 50 years ago, let alone 100 or 200 years ago. And I always wonder, what would these people have done 100 years ago? Would you have been a painter, an artist?
Yeah. So I do think that there were a lot of ways that people expressed themselves. So I did a talk once for the Yahoo sales team when Flickr had just been acquired, and we were talking about how they said, please explain Web 2.0 to the all the 2,000 salespeople at the Yahoo sales annual sales event, right? Explain what is Web 2.0. And so what I did was I put together the slide deck. It was one of my favorite presentations I ever did, and I chose as my model of Web 1.0 80s hair bands like Poison, and I had 70s,
yeah, big hair bands. Got it.
Kiss, right? Like
White
Kiss
Snake.
White Snake. Yes, like this represented sort of top down. This is the media telling you what to watch, right? Telling you what to listen to.
Right.
And then like I said, well, Web 2.0 is actually going back to a prior version of self-expression where you would just grab your mandolin and you would go down to the pub or frankly your living room and hang out there and play the play your mandolin or the jug or the washboard and just sit around and sing around a campfire. And that was a different kind of, it's still music, right? It's not Whitesnake. But, and then I said, what Flickr's doing is it's like you're making your own mode of expression. You're making your own music. You're uploading, these pictures of your life, and you're making your own media, right?
It's previously, from our kind of point of view, I think that's exactly what I think about, that mass media is really a aberration. It's a little blip in the overall story of humans and of media. The idea that you would make, just like mass beer production, that you would make huge quantities of media, and it would be very top down because it's very capital intensive, and everybody's just supposed to sit and consume it, and there's a handful who get to make it. And we're going back to that old artisanal form of media where it's created by humans for humans in a smaller scale, just like we're going to artisanal beer and everything else.
Etsy's the marketplace where you can get your soap and your soap and your shoes and from the people who actually make them, and that's something that I've always cared very much about, is that form of market, a real market, in the traditional sense of market. And I think that you're right. I think it's a bit of a historical aberration when the sort of the mass culture events, whatever, Best Buy.
Yeah, well, maybe we can turn our back on that. On the other hand, there's this huge efficiency of scale when you have a Best Buy store or a Costco.
You need roads and railways. These things were needed and necessary, and still are. So
there's room for both.
There's room for both.
What problems did you have to solve to create this portable cellular-based telephone?
Oh boy, everything was new. The simple things as the antenna. Nobody had done two-way communications at 1,000 megahertz. That was an incredible number. The highest we'd ever gotten to was 450 megahertz. So we had to have a new antenna. We had to come up with a way of doing transmit and receive at the same time. We call that duplex. Now, that had never been done in a portable. And when we did that at 450 megahertz in a mobile, the device that allowed you to transmit and receive at the same time was bigger than the size of your fist, and we had to squeeze that into this little box. We had to put hundreds of radio channels into this box when the most we've ever had before was just a couple of channels. So there were just a huge number of challenges, most of them associated with miniaturization, but also using this new frequency band.
Well, and I know we have a lot of, I'm a ham, and we have a lot of hams who watch, and they know very well analog radio and how tricky it can be, and the notion of going from 150 megahertz to 1,000 megahertz, never been done before. I know that they can, and we can all imagine the challenges of that. You must have had a really brilliant team to do that.
They were. Yeah. They were extraordinary guys.
So the first prototype, it's 1973. I love this press opportunity you mentioned. You've got a radio reporter walking down the street. Nobody'd ever seen this before. A guy on a phone talking and walking. We're so used to it now. In fact, it's hazardous now. People run into you walking to the street, but nobody'd ever done that before. Did you get stares?
Well, it was amazing. If you've ever walked down the streets of New York, you could be transparent. People don't even look at each other.
Right.
And there were people gawking at us. Because if you think about it, I mentioned all the things that didn't exist. Even a cordless phone didn't exist then.
Right. So they probably thought you were just nuts.
They do. Yeah, well.
We've all gotten used to the people talking to themselves
that may
now.
That may still be true, Leo. There are still people.
So 1973, you've got it. It's working. And whose cell towers are you using? Did you have to put up your own?
Oh, you bet. That's a thing that people don't realize even today. It takes a very complex system to make cellular work. And in order to just do that demonstration, which we did both in New York and in Washington, we had to build not only the phones, but the towers that the phones talk to. So in New York, we had one tower. We did our demonstration near the New York Hilton. We had a tower in the building associated or across the street from the New York Hilton. It's called at that time, it was called the Burlington Tower. Today, it's the Alliance Building. By the way, that's base station that we use is still there.
No kidding.
The union wanted so much money to take that station down. We decided it was cheaper to leave it up there. It's still there. And then we had another one down at Wall Street so that we could take this portable down to AT&T and demonstrate it to them as well.
So does history record what Joel Engel said, your rival at AT&T, when you called him and said, "You'll never guess where I'm calling you from"?
Who would ever have guessed that would have such important significance?
Well, Watson, come here. I need you. It's one of those moments. And how many of us do not remember the first time we used a cell phone in an airplane? And of course, what's the first thing you say? "You'll never believe where I'm calling you from."
Yeah.
Right?
No, that's exactly right.
We can all identify. What was Joel's response? "Oh, damn you, Cooper!"
Well, Joel says he doesn't remember the call, and I guess if I was him, I wouldn't either. But he's always been very polite.
That's very funny. It's very convenient. I don't remember. He called me, really? Wow, the guy who invented the portable cell phone, Marty Cooper. He is an amazing fella. I hope you enjoyed that interview. We're going on. We got lots more. You know Steve Gibson. Who does it? He's the host of Security Now on our network. One of the things we like to do with Triangulation is get people that you might know from other shows on the network, sit them down and get to know them a little bit better. You ever wonder how Steve got to be Steve Gibson? Watch. As usual with Triangulation, I'd like to start with the early days and how you became a geek. Were you a geek as a kid?
Yeah, I was. One of my earliest memories is when the family would get together, the extended family, for Christmas. And my grandparents were prolific, so I had lots of aunts and uncles who didn't know me well because I pretty much only saw them for Christmas, but they did know that they had to come up with some sort of a present. And so I used to hear the stories about how they would go into the local toy store back, when we had local toy stores before the internet, and they'd go to the manager and say, "Okay, look, I have this nephew that's a real pain in the ass, and I need the hardest puzzle you have."
Like puzzle pieces, like jigsaw puzzle?
Oh, whatever it was. Like one year it was Instant Insanity. Remember the 4 cubes that were in the package you saw all red, all white, all green, and all blue. But the moment you broke it up and scrambled them, then the challenge was to rearrange them that way again. I mean, so whatever it was, essentially for me, Christmas was opening up a raft of puzzles. Sometimes they were, the convoluted hard wire things like nails bent that you had to, move around and manipulate them to slip them out. Anyway, I do love puzzles. And so that was one of the, I guess I always have had that penchant and sort of been like that. So yeah, they used to tell me that, and they would always think, "Okay, now we got you. you little, you're not going to be able to figure this one out."
And would you have solved them all by the end of Christmas Day?
Yeah, right then on the spot.
Right there. Oh yeah, that's easy. Yeah. It sounds like it became a thing. Like, oh, let's see what we can get this year.
Well, I mean, like one year was Towers of Hanoi.
Oh yeah, that was fun.
The physical thing.
Did a lot of that.
And so I would do it once, and then they'd say, "Okay, no, wait, you cheated." And I go, "Okay, sit down, Aunt Mary. I'll show you." And so I'd start moving a little donuts from one peg to the other.
There was the 3 pegs, and you had this. And then what's interesting, and I also had that as a kid.
Recursion. It's classic recursion.
Well, that's what's interesting. It's one of the early computer programs you will write, and it's a great challenge for kids learning computer programming because it's a lot of steps if you don't know about recursion. But as soon as you figure out recursion, it can be solved in just a few lines. It's really a simple problem.
Yep. And then there was NIM. Remember NIM, where you have some number of like matches, and you can either take 1, 2, or 3, I think it is, and you alternate and try to get the other person to get stuck with the last match. And anyway, I delight in that kind of thing. So yeah, I think pretty well. And of course, the portable dog killer story. That was me in high school. And so, but there was a long preamble to that that led up to the point where I was just able to decide I needed to build one of those to deal with the neighborhood dog. So,
well, yeah, that's what I'm curious about. When it went from physical puzzles to something more electronic, did you start with like Heathkits and that kind of thing?
You know what it was? Well, first of all, I was very destructive to the household. Mom would, go into the closet to get the vacuum cleaner and come out with the hose, and the rest had been disassembled because Stevie needed to know how it worked.
Michio Kaku's new book is called The Future of the Mind, The Scientific Quest to Understand, Enhance, and Empower the Mind. This is really a different field for you. What prompted you to look into this area?
Well, when I was a child, I had a role model, Albert Einstein, and I wanted to complete his dream of a theory of everything. But a theory of everything has to explain the other great mystery of the universe, which is what sits on your shoulders. And so when I was a child, I used to do experiments on telepathy, reading minds,
really,
telekinesis, moving objects with the mind. I dreamed about recording thoughts. I dreamed about perhaps one day photographing a dream. However, I failed. I realized that maybe telepaths did walk the surface of the earth, but I wasn't one of them. But now I'm a physicist. Now we can do it. We can do all of the above. We can read minds, move objects with the mind, record memories, upload memories, and even photograph a dream. All of that has been done in the laboratory.
Wow. Photograph a dream? What does that look like?
Right.
Is that from a functional MRI, or is it, what do we see?
Well, at Berkeley, where I got my PhD years and years ago, they put a patient in an MRI machine, which calculates blood flow and outputs 30,000 dots representing the energy flows of the living brain. Then there's a software program that analyzes these 30,000 dots and creates a picture of what you are looking at.
What?
And then when you fall asleep, the machine just keeps on going and prints out your dream.
So it's not a picture of the blood flow, really. It's a picture of what you're seeing in your dream?
That's right. If you go to the website, you can actually see a picture of Steve Martin and a picture that is recreated from the human mind. That is the blood flow of the brain, analyzed by a computer, reassembling a photograph that looks a lot like Steve Martin. You can see a picture of an elephant, a picture of an airplane, a picture of a human. 30,000 dots is not a lot of pixels, but it gives you a good enough look at what the person is thinking about. Then when you fall asleep, it keeps on going.
Did the person who had the dream about Steve Martin wake up and say, I dreamt Steve Martin, and then they showed him this and they said, yeah, that's what I was dreaming? How did they know? It doesn't look that much like Steve Martin.
Well, one problem is, how do you fact check that?
Yeah.
However, in Germany now, they've even gone another step forward and shown that lucid dreaming is really a true phenomenon. That's when you can actually change the course of a dream consciously as you are dreaming.
Wow.
They put a patient in an MRI machine, and they asked him to perform certain tasks while he was dreaming. And before he was dreaming, they actually had a predetermined set of protocols. He would clench his right fist, and then clench his left fist. Well, sure enough, when he was fast asleep, you could see the blood flow corresponding to clenching your right fist and your left fist, and he did it on demand. And so lucid dreaming is really correct. We've now been able to show using MRI scans that you can change the course of your own dream.
Wow, this is wild stuff. I didn't even introduce you as the father of the internet. I presume that anybody who watches our stuff knows exactly who Vint Cerf is. And of course, now you work at Google as chief internet evangelist. But I think at this point, it's clear the internet is one of the most significant inventions of humankind. And I always think when I interview people of your stature, people who are so important historically on something like that, that 100, 200 years from now, this conversation will be part of the historic record. I'm channeling a historian from 200 years in the future now to ask you some questions about this historic invention. So if you'll pardon that, I'll do my best.
No, actually, this is quite interesting and is relevant to a big issue that I have. It's called the bit rot problem and the preservation of digital information.
Yes.
And we may come to that if there's time.
I wouldn't mind starting there, because clearly historians of the future are very, very worried about that. But somebody, I think, accurately said, in a way, history began just a few decades ago when we were able to record it on audio and then later video. We don't know what Abraham Lincoln sounded like or looked or moved like, but we do know now. Do you fear that this record, though, will be lost?
Yes, I do. And let me give you the small problem, which is also a very hard problem, and then the big problem. The small problem is merely the ability not only to preserve bits, which I think we can do. We may have to move them from one digital medium to another, because as you know, it might be hard to find an 8-inch long floppy disk reader or a 3.5-inch floppy disk reader, and today you may even have trouble finding a CD reader. I note that my Macintosh MacBook Pro does not have a CD reader in it, which I was not happy about, but here we are. So the medium may change, but we can copy bits from one medium to another if we're aware of the changes in the available storage technology. But the other important problem is, how do I interpret the bits? Do I need the software that created them to help me interpret them? If it's a spreadsheet, for example, or if it's a video of one kind or another, will I have documented the formats adequately? How will I remember that? If it's a complex program, like a word processing program or something like that, then you may have difficulty correctly interpreting the complex format without actually having the software that ran to produce it, and then you need the operating system environment that helped run that program, plus the I/O and all this other stuff. So I think it's going to be a challenge to create a regime in which we can preserve the necessary software and ability to interpret bits over periods of centuries to millennia. But that's the small problem. It's still a very hard one. The big problem, in some respects, is whether the internet will still be around or something like it 100 or 200 years from now. I mean, there are many challenges even today as to its longevity. It's been around since 1983 in operation. We're celebrating the 40th anniversary of publishing the first paper on the internet in May, literally, of 1974. Wow. So it's literally 40 years ago that Tom and I...
The blink of an eye, really.
Well, yeah, except I used to have more hair. So this paper was published in IEEE Transactions on Communications, literally 40 years ago.
Wow.
And tomorrow tonight actually, I'm heading to Sao Paulo, Brazil for the Net Mundial meeting, which is one of many meetings on the whole question of internet governance. And one of the issues in this larger picture is whether we will find adequate models for sustaining the internet going forward, or its successors going forward into the centuries ahead. And I hope so, because it would be nice to imagine that you, as this historian from the year 2214, would be able to get access to this recording and others that are relevant to this period of time.
Wow, talking to the father of the internet. I have to admit, I got a little teary talking to Vint Cerf. That was the second time I'd interviewed him in about a month. But just to talk with a guy who has made such a huge difference in our lives, it's pretty special. Coming up, we're going to talk to a band that made its name on YouTube. But first, I've got a little commercial for you from our friends at Personal Capital. And by the way, when we talk triangulation, of course, I think Personal Capital and triangulation go together. First of all, because we first met Bill Harris, the founder, on triangulation. He talked a little bit about this new company he was starting up. This was a couple of years ago. I signed up then, and I've been a happy user of Personal Capital ever since. Personal Capital. The idea is to get you to understand where your money is, what it's doing, so that you can plan for the future. A rainy day, buying a house, or most importantly, plan for your retirement. As you make your resolutions for the new year, mine include, I think you might guess, eat healthier, work out more, and invest smarter. And I want to share with you something free and secure that will help you do that. It's called Personal Capital. Put that on your to-do list for 2015. It's already helping more than 600,000 investors just like you, just like me, get the most out of our money so that we can manage and grow our wealth. Personal Capital, it's a complete intuitive financial dashboard. You get all your accounts in a single place so you could see where your money is, see where it's going. You can make smarter financial decisions, manage your portfolio like a pro. You can even do things like budgeting. It's so simple. It takes just a couple of minutes to set up, and then you'll see this financial dashboard on your computer, on your tablet, on your smartphone, and even on your Android Wear watch. They have an app for it. Using Personal Capital will help you grow your wealth. It'll help you find and eliminate expensive, overpriced mutual funds and 401ks with fees and other hidden brokerage fees that could be costing you years of retirement. You put this money, you worked hard for it, you put it away, you don't want it to be dribbling away in fees, and Personal Capital can help you stop that. You can also get advice tailored exactly to your needs, your goals, and I love that too. Personal Capital, why wait? Taking control of your financial future doesn't take any time, won't take any money, it's absolutely free. Get total clarity and transparency at personalcapital.com/triangulation. personalcapital.com/triangulation. It's absolutely free, and it's the best way to grow your money. Now, get ready for Pomplamoose, a band we've loved for years. They made their name on YouTube. They've become a great success. Here they are with a little performance for Triangulation.
What are you going to do next for us, Dawn and Connie? Connie and Dawn.
We're going to do our version of a song called Nature Boy.
The classic from, I want to say Nat King Cole?
Yep.
Is that right? Yeah, all
that
right.
is right.
Ladies and gentlemen, Pomplamoose.
A very strange, enchanted boy. They say he wandered very far over land and sea. A little shy and sad of eye, but very wise was he. And then one day, one magic day, he came my way. And while we spoke of many things, fools and kings, this he said to me: the greatest thing you'll ever learn is just to love and be loved in return. just to love and be loved in return.
We've told this story before, but I'm going to tell it again since you're here. As you were a production assistant, and you came, I don't know, came to me or Patrick or Paul Block and said, there's a flaw in Microsoft Windows.
Yeah.
It was in the messaging.
That's right.
And you showed us. You were able to send messages to all these.
Yeah, you could spam anyone. It was basically just a way to send a little pop-up window to anyone's computer.
On the network,
yeah,
anywhere, not on your land, but anywhere on the internet.
Oh yeah, you just use IP addresses. You could just write a little script that would go in and try one after another, and it would say success or fail, and you could send tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of messages a day to anyone's computer.
Yeah.
So Windows had built that in as a way to message from computer to computer, but
it was for
the
LAN administrator. It was
for LAN
to
administrator.
tell we're bringing the server down.
Right. Right, but it was open to everyone on the internet, so we contacted Microsoft. They didn't
We said
really
before
care.
you said let's put this on the air, and I said, well, or Paul did, Paul Block was our executive producer. Let's tell Microsoft, see what they say.
Right.
And they said, yeah, we know about that.
Right.
It's not a problem. It's not a bug. It's a feature. They literally said that.
That's right. So we talked about it on the air.
So and the idea, and this I think credit Paul Block for this. Paul said, let's have Kevin do it. Why should we have Leo or Patrick tell the world about it? You discovered it. Why don't you show you? Were you pretty? Can you, Chad, look and see? Because I think that's on YouTube somewhere.
It's on YouTube somewhere.
Kevin Rose's first appearance.
Man, I was so nervous going on
Were you a little
camera
shaky?
for the first time. Oh, yeah, of course.
I have to find Patrick Norton's first appearance on Call for Help. You visibly shaking. You
really?
could hear in his voice the quaver.
That's
He was so terrified.
Everybody gets freaked out.
It's a little freaky.
It takes a while.
It's a little freaky. I felt very fortunate because I think of all the people at Tech TV, I kind of had an idea of how lucky we were because I'd worked in broadcasting for years, and so I knew this is not normal. This is a very unusual thing we're doing here, and no one else has had. This is not what. And we had all these people coming out of college who thought this is what television's like.
Yeah.
No, you're working in San Francisco. Nobody gets to do that. You're talking to an audience about something that they care about and that you care about, and you're not dumbing it down. This is unheard of. And the weirdest thing is management seems to just let us do whatever we want.
Yeah. That's pretty
changed.
awesome. Yeah, that changed.
But that was amazing. Can you find it, Chad? I might have to look for it here on my YouTube.
Yeah, I'm not finding it. But
I want to show. It's on YouTube, isn't it?
It should be.
I think I've
like
seen
first
it.
appearance, screensavers, something like that.
Kevin Rose first appearance on the screensavers, showing this Microsoft bug. All right, we're gonna take up some of your precious time. While I do that, maybe we'll do a commercial and then we'll come back. Kevin Rose is our guest partner, as you see, at Google Ventures. A very esteemed and august person who is changing the world through the internet. But you all remember him when? Just a young guy straight out of Vegas.
That's right.
Teaching us all. It was Paul Block called you the dark tipper.
Was it? I think it was.
It wasn't me.
Somebody.
It was Paul Block, and I don't think you liked it so much.
It was horrible. But it was fun. It was kind of my shtick.
It was a good shtick.
Yeah.
The idea was you were showing us kind of the dark side of the internet. Here is an old one, but it's not. I don't think this is the one, but it's kind of funny to see.
Windows password.
That's
Your Windows password
long hair
is not very
days
secure,
before the gray
You
hair.
know, you haven't aged at all.
Are you
Kevin.
kidding me?
That's the most important thing to know. Let me show you. Let me give you
I had 0 gray hairs back then.
Take a look at this right here.
Now it's like
I launched the
90%
command
gray.
shell, and this
there's
is
some
your Windows System 32
DOS
config directory.
prompt stuff.
This is where Windows passwords
See,
are stored.
see how good he is? So it was really apparent, even the first time you were on, I don't know how nervous you were, but the first time you were on, it was really apparent that you had this energy and this passion and this interest, and you were really able to communicate really well. You're natural.
I don't know about that.
You're a
I would
natural.
go out and have like shots of whiskey before coming on the show. I remember the
Maybe
first
that's
time.
why you were so relaxed.
The first time I hosted the show, I remember someone called in sick. I think it was either you or Patrick. I can't remember. I think it was Patrick.
I'm sure it was Patrick. I was only sick once in 6 years.
Yeah, so it was Patrick. Or you were on vacation a few times.
Maybe
when I
that
hosted
was
and
it,
Filled,
yeah,
filled in
yeah.
for you, but Patrick was out, and they're like, Kevin, you're going to host, and I was like, the show, because Marty had done it before, and Sarah had done it before. And so I'm like, oh, God, what am I going to do? And so I went around the corner, you know, Slow Club.
Yeah.
It's a little bar
We
slash
used to hang out there.
restaurant.
It's still there, I think.
It's still there.
Yeah.
I go there every couple weeks. But I went in there and I just had to have a shot. And so I just did a shot right around lunchtime just to calm my nerves a little bit. And I was still freaking out. And then, I remember first time hosting the show, just going on there, and my heart was going to jump out of my chest. But it was fun.
Wow.
But I was not a natural. It took a long time to get
that.
comfortable.
You may not have felt like a natural, but I think you were pretty good. They found it. Wow, the chat room is good.
Yeah, I think I got it.
All right.
Oh, that's it.
Boy, oh boy.
I did that little
Seaport
chalkboard.
139, yeah.
That was my
Now,
best
Kevin
art
Rose,
skills
you all know,
back there.
he's usually
with
over there in the
chalkboard.
Netcam Cineplex, but he's the guy who found this, and people probably don't know this about
This is on G4. This is weird. It's
the Netcam Cineplex. What a grandiose name.
And how did you find this hole?
Well, just playing around with a couple friends. You know, we like to take
Yeah.
apart computers, just hack them, get into them. And,
You don't look
playing
nervous
around
at all.
with
Look
Chris
how
Krause from
natural
the
you
IT
are.
department, good friend of mine,
Definitely
and just
nervous.
started playing around and actually started spamming some machines. Well, the first thing you have to do is you have to do a port
A lot
scan,
baggier
find out
jeans
which
back then,
machines
too.
can be hacked.
You need my IP address. You can't do it without it.
Right.
That was
So
fun,
what I'm
though.
going to do is I'm going to take a range of IP addresses.
Ted Nelson is really a legend, a legendary fellow living. He's still in his houseboat in Sausalito, California. He joins us now via Skype to talk about Xanadu, which in 1995 Wired magazine called the longest running vaporware project of all time. I take it you didn't.
Which shows that they know nothing about computer history. I can give you a list of 10 vaporware projects that are far more expensive and long running.
I think you're right. And in fact, as time's gone by, there's even more now.
Yeah, of course.
Ted, welcome to Triangulation. I'm thrilled to have you on. Thank you for joining
We
us.
absorbed no more than 200 man years and no more than $5 million. That's chump change.
Nothing.
Yeah.
So let's start back in the early 60s when you first created this concept of hypertext. Tell me a little bit about the background and where it came from and what you were trying to accomplish.
I was a media guy. In my when I entered college, I'd already been an actor on stage and TV due to my father, and I had already in college. I wrote a number of plays. I believe I wrote the first rock musical, though everybody wants to contest that. I had my own magazine. I did this half-hour movie comedy as my first film. And I published my first book and produced a long-playing record. So I was very much into media of all kinds. And to me, all media are alike. You think about the effects you want, and you think about what are the technicalities it will take to give you those effects. So when I took a computer course in graduate school, I said, holy smoke, you can put interactive screens on them. Now, for some reason, this was obvious. Interactive screens were instantly obvious to me. As soon as I saw a picture of a guy sitting at a screen with a light pen, I got the whole picture. And it took other people a long time, but I was a media guy. I said, screens, I can do that. So all media are alike. You figure out what effects you want, and then you figure out what technicalities are required to bring about those effects, and that's what I've been doing ever since.
I think the disadvantage the computer people had at that time was that they were very keenly aware of the limitations of the existing hardware, and they couldn't think out of the box at what might be possible. You were way ahead of your time, really.
Well, in some ways, but Moore's law had already been stated as Moore hadn't stated it, but everybody knew that this was what was happening. And even though cathode ray tubes, interactive displays, were only being used by Cheyenne Mountain Nuclear Defense and
hackers at MIT, yeah,
and air traffic control. Those were the two series at the time. The fact that the price was going to come down, everybody would have them. And so I immediately said, okay, we're going to have a new world of publishing. People would be able to publish from screen to screen across the world without any publishing companies in between. Having published my own books, I come from a line of self-publishers. My grandmother published her own books. My great-grandfather published his book. So self-publishing was to me the desired aspect, because publishers, you see, get in the way with their conventional and stereotype notions. If you want to say something original, you have to publish it yourself. So making the world safe for self-publishers on a broad scale was one of the things I was thinking of. But then the issue of the structure of text. Now, I'd always been frustrated by sequential writing. Why does writing have to be in a sequence? Because paper is in a sequence. Because we number pages. Why do we number pages? Because they're horizontal. They're rectangular, and they're packed in a sheet after sheet. But if we have screens, they don't have to be packed sheet after sheet. We can go to the side. We can go to the top. We can jump to another thing, and there need to be no space limitations. It puzzles me that Wikipedia still makes the length of an article based upon the importance that the subject has in the eyes of the editors. When I say editors, Wikipedia is a benign fraud. You don't edit Wikipedia. You submit changes to the hidden editor. But in any case, figuring out what the new media of the screen would be, that to me was the highest calling I could think of.
Well, that's one thing we've done so well, I think, in the year with Triangulation, is talk to people who have invented things that have changed the world. Ted Nelson, a good example of a guy who's really done so much to help us understand information and how to access it, how to organize it. And this Xanadu project, it's been a dream for so long. Now, let's talk a little bit about visual effects. Our next guest was the visual effects supervisor for Sharknado, but don't hold that against him. He's been on many other great films. We talked a little bit about the Uncanny Valley. Uncanny Valley.
Oh yeah.
This is the animators, holy grail. The problem being that it's fine when you're animating starships, but when you're animating a human being, particularly face and hands, we're so finely tuned in our brains to real and unreal. And in fact, I think there's an evolutionary bit in our mind that if something's slightly off, stay away. That this person is ill and it may be communicative, communicable, and you could die. So that person's nose is kind of, stay away. And I think that's really what Uncanny Valley is we look at something and in our gut, we go, oh, that's wrong. And we haven't solved that yet, have we?
Not completely. I mean, if you watch Benjamin Button, that came really close.
Really close, but in fact, the closer you get,
right,
the worse it is.
The reason it's called the Uncanny Valley is you can have a totally puppet-like creature, like your Nevdal, for example.
Yes.
And everybody will accept that as a cartoon, and then as you get more and more humanish, people stop believing it.
Right.
And then in theory, there's a place where that comes back and people start believing it. Have we gotten there? I don't know. A lot of people, what they do is they'll take an actual human and scan it all the way around high quality and scan it with different lighting to get all the different layers and then slap that onto the polygons, onto the NURBS. That doesn't always work because a lot of things that make us is the stuff below the skin, the blood vessels. This part is a little more oily than others. One of the best CG face guys I know started off in makeup. And so he had 15, 20 years of
looking at people,
putting makeup on people.
Yeah.
And then he went into CG, into Lightwave, and came up with all these tools that were basically his makeup kit done digital. And it really just moved everything forward. That's what turned Roughnecks from puppets into a little closer to the Uncanny Valley anyway.
When I look at Andy Serkis's performance in the New Planet of the Apes movies, and of course he has a camera on him, and then they turn it into an ape. Those apes don't strike me as Is it because they're apes, or because we've gotten so good and we're getting close?
I think it's a bit of both. You're gonna be more forgiving with an ape because you don't see an ape all day every day of your life. And you don't have, as you say, the genetic bit that says that ape is bad.
Danger.
All apes are all apes are apes. They're not human.
They all look alike,
so you've got that going for it, but also the fur technology that started off with the Coca-Cola polar bears has come so far in all these years, and all the research done to get human skin to look right. You apply that to ape skin, and it's going to look that much better. And the fact that, especially on a big budget show like Apes, somebody is there capturing the light as it was done. We call it high dynamic range imaging on the set. And now the ape is in the same exact lighting as the human actor with them.
Do they capture that with still shots? How do they capture that? I didn't realize they were doing that. So they're making very sure that they know the lighting exactly so you could duplicate it in the CGI.
I actually did it on Sharknado.
No.
I did. There was actual dynamic range imaging done on Sharknado.
But it looks...
And it paid off, not at all.
Do you think that our technological obsession and social media, is it really social in that way?
It's become mob. And it's become mob behavior. And to that extent, again, I'm very concerned about it. And, when you look at historical moments where there's not been a lot of good connection amongst people, close, connected, empathic, attuned connection, you kind of see the emergence of mobs.
Yeah.
And now we have this mechanism for the mob to act out.
Twitter is a mob.
It's a mob, and it has to have blood. Once they decide that something is a problem, the truth is not an issue, and they have to have a consequence on the focus of their fury. Somebody's got to lose a job. Something's got to happen to that person whom they've decided is the object of their fury. And the truth, there's a great book called "Trust Me, I'm Lying" by Ryan. What's Ryan's last name? Holiday. And he talks about this phenomenon in great detail and very clearly that it's this swelling of mob feeling that really drives traffic on particular places like Twitter.
We've actually had Ryan on this show talking about it's the confessions of a media manipulator, as you may remember. And he was he was a controversial guest. I think he was saying things a lot of people didn't want to hear, and I think you just said the same thing.
Well, I think I'm not saying I'm not passing judgment. I'm saying something's good or bad. I'm just saying this guy was an astute. I spent a lot of time frustrated and upset about Twitter. Like, what the hell's going on here? Why do these people say these lies and then they perpetuate, and then there's nothing you can do about it? And then he articulates how that works, and now he gets a little sinister with how to manipulate it himself. But it's a explanation for how the mob operates on Twitter and how traditional media picks it up as fact.
Boy, that is the best description I've ever heard. We have been struggling with trolls, and it feels like it's nowadays a woman on Twitter or a woman in public, a woman anywhere is at more risk than ever before. And I've been really struggling with what is going on, and I think you just articulated it.
Yeah, I think it's the lack of empathy, so we don't have good empathic attunement, and then it's gratifying to be part of a mob. It's very satisfying to join a group and focus on one and get our bloodlust out that way, our anger, our frustrations.
I've had that experience when I was in college. It was during the Vietnam War, and I've been in large protests and remember doing things I would have never done as an individual because it was in a mob. And it is a different experience. You become part of a larger organism that doesn't have the empathy or the moral direction. And you're right, wants blood and will not be satisfied till it gets it.
That's right. And it's been written about and written about and written about. There's that one series, Extraordinary Popular Delusions and the Madness of Crowds. Mm-hmm. There's the people around the French Revolution wrote a lot about mobs. They had the opportunity to see them. They saw them, and they pretty much got it. They pretty much
well, if you've been in it, it's terrifying, and you immediately get, wow, that was not good.
Well, it's terrifying, but it's also gratifying. I mean, we've all had the experience of being in a football stadium and being part of a mob. It's really something very satisfying. We're wired up for it. But again, I think it can go bad, right? But I think in particular historical moments, it's prone to going bad. I think we're in one of those moments, and then we have this electronic way of acting it out.
Because we're disassociated and
we're not connected. Yeah, we're not connected the way we need to be healthy.
What's your prescription?
My prescription is I'm writing a book about it, actually. I've turned it into the editor. I hope they'll put it out soon. It's about learning to sit down and be close and build a structured closeness that allows for you to experience yourself as there's a famous book that we use in the addiction world called A New Pair of Glasses.
I have it, and I love it. That is a wonderful book.
Yeah. How you are experienced by others very much affects your brain. Brains build brains. And it's not a cognitive experience. It's an experiential, emotional, shared phenomenon. And, we've gone through a cognitive revolution where everything was about language and cognition. And it was all good. It was all real.
But that's on the fringes. It's on the surface. The deeper experiences are where we need to focus our attention now, and that's all interpersonal, and it needs our attention.
Of course, apps became the thing, and you were front and center. In fact, every smartphone I've ever bought, one of the first things I install is Evernote, and now all my stuff's there, which is nice.
They're going away, I think. Apps. I think we're
really.
Yeah, I think I think the whole cycle of apps, it's going to be, a decade. It's going to be like the decade of apps, and then that's it.
That happens in the industry. I mean, remember the decade of CD-ROMs?
Yeah, totally. I think it's going to be, roughly 2008, to about 2017, 2018, and then it's really going to fade away.
Is that why you put all this effort into this HTML5 new web interface? This is the beta, by the way, if you're an Evernote user.
No, I don't mean that. I don't mean native apps versus HTML stuff. I actually think native apps for a long time are still gonna win. I really mean like the idea that there are apps that you like interact with and choose to launch in a device and spend time with, like apps as kind of an atomic unit of computing. I think it's gonna fade away, which is a big deal. It's going to be very challenging for app companies to stay relevant when there are no more apps.
What is this because of iOS extensions? What is this going to look like?
Well, I think if you look at kind of every big jump in computing, like from PCs to mobile, and then from mobile to wearables, like some concepts always become much less relevant. Concepts that used to be super relevant become much less relevant. So like when you went from PC software, like when we were designing PC software, your average session length on a PC is like 2 hours.
Right.
So, if you're designing, a word processor for a PC, your goal is like, how do you make someone productive 2 hours at a time, like once a day?
Right.
And so you can deal with a lot of stuff like files and folders and like you just have the time. You've got 2 hours, you've got time to deal with this stuff. When you go on a mobile phone, your average session length drops to like 2 minutes. But instead of once a day, it's like 50 times a day. So, how do you make someone productive 2 minutes at a time? Or if you're making a video game, how do you make someone entertained 2 minutes at a time? And one of the first things to go are these old ideas of files. Like files are much less relevant on phones than they were on desktops, just because if you only got 2 minutes, like you're not going to really want to browse through directories and think about that as a concept. But apps became really important because, you've got 2 minute session that's just enough time to like swipe a couple of times and tap an app. But when you go to wearables, the average session length is going to go down to seconds. It's going to be like a second and a half, like 1,000 times a day.
You're right.
So
I'm wearing an Android, the Moto X Android Wear Watch, Moto 360.
Yeah.
In fact, it's starting to talk to me. Stop. Shh. Quiet. And you do. That's exactly what. In fact, even as I've been talking to you, my daughter called. I swiped her away.
Yep.
My Evernote. I was logging into Evernote, so my code came in on my watch. Swiped away. You're right. Literally a couple of seconds.
Yeah, and so you're not going to have apps on it. You're not going to be like swipe.
No, that's terrible.
That's all silly.
Yeah.
So there's going to be like, you're certainly not going to have files, but I don't even think you're going to have apps. So the whole concept changes dramatically when you have wearables, and it's one of the things that we really tried to do over the past year, and we talked about at the conference is, the industry is stuck using some very archaic metaphors, and the central problem we have is like the metaphors are old and broken. Like a file is a bad idea. A file is sort of a dumb metaphor. An inbox is a dumb metaphor. The future is something else. And we know a little bit of what it's going to be like, but we know definitely what it's not going to be. And what it's not going to be is apps, files, folders, inboxes, slides.
Sounds like it's more atomic than that.
Maybe more interconnected. We're trying a lot of different things. The whole idea, I think, is you don't really have individual tools for specific things. Like there won't really be a communications tool. Like you don't really need a phone. You don't need a tool to collaborate. You don't need a tool to communicate. You should communicate and collaborate as part of creating whatever it is that you're doing, and so on. So I think actually the boundaries between these things get knocked down, and apps are typically very sandbox. There's a lot of sharp boundaries between them, which I think is one of the reasons they won't work in this world. But no one's got the full answer yet.
You're into the video thing.
Love the video thing.
Because you showed me something. It's not out yet. It's going to come out Friday?
TV Heads.
Yeah.
Wasn't V Heads, I'm sorry. V Heads.
If you go to Damon's Instagram, you can see
because you're already using this.
Yes.
So it's Instagram.com/Damon K. Wayans.
Yeah, I can make a nice one with you right now.
And what it does is it embeds video into a still picture, kind of, yeah?
So I took this picture of this guy.
Okay, is that Josh? What is the guy with the smile?
No, this is a guy on the streets of San Francisco.
Okay,
I can put a filter on it.
Look at that. That's nice. That's actually a nice picture.
And then I can go in and add some text over it, change the color of the text.
And this will be iOS coming out this Friday.
Yeah, and Android.
You were saying that it's easier to do something like this on iOS.
Yes.
But when you put it out only on iOS, people get mad at you, like me.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I understand why they get mad.
We feel left out.
Yeah. So now I can go in and.
Oh, this is cool. You're gonna do his head.
Yeah. And I can record.
Yeah.
And give me $5.
I'm sorry, you probably got my laughter in there.
So now I have
a little lower down there so we can see it. Yeah, there you go. Oh, Lord.
And then I could post that on
Instagram.
Instagram or YouTube or.
Oh my God.
This is a community, so you'll be able to post it to, right here to the VHeads site.
I love it. All right, now. Yeah, this is. I saw this stuff on your Instagram.
Yeah,
it's
there's
great.
a bunch of them.
You can video bomb other people's pictures.
Yeah, that's how I'm gonna get that out there. Is to I'm gonna just go in and start video bombing people. And you can put up to 2 screens. It's very, very sexy.
It sounds like fun.
Yeah.
Now you charge for your apps. You don't give them away with in-app purchases.
This one's gonna be free.
You're gonna do that with this one.
Yes.
In-app purchase?
No, right now it's
free
to build a community.
Oh, that's neat.
Because I look at Instagram and I'm like, you know what? Sometimes you see a photo and you just want to say something. That's what this is about. Letting you comment on this nonsense.
This is trouble right here. You're starting
Good trouble.
something.
Yeah. Want to be starting something.
By the way, I've been using that VHeads app that Damon created on Instagram. It's really, and he's been using it like crazy. If you don't follow him on Instagram and you want to see what VHeads can do, go to Instagram.com/Damon K. Wayans. Wow, he's really using it effectively, I think. Hey, I hope you've enjoyed our very special holiday edition of Triangulation, and you get a great sense of the variety of topics we cover, the amazing people we meet, and I can tell you right now, I've already seen in the schedule, 2015 is going to be even better, even more interesting. So please watch Triangulation. We do it every Monday morning around 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 1900 UTC. You can also get an on-demand copy at twit.tv/TRI, or get it wherever you get your podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio. There's lots of places, and of course our own Twit apps on all the major platforms. Thanks for being here for 2014. Here's to a great 2015. I'm Leo Laporte. Hey, I'll see you next time on Triangulation. Happy holidays!